Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Friday Reads. I know I didn't do one last Friday, because I had to talk about Emma, Jane Austen. If you haven't seen that and are interested, I will leave a link to the Emma video from last Friday down below. Anyway, but this Friday we will do a Friday Reads and talk about the books that I've finished over the last 10 days or something, and the books that I started. And as always, I'm not talking about all the books that I finished, because some of them will make it in the tops and flops, which I will film next week, next Friday probably. So yes, there are some books that I finished that I'm not going to talk about. But anyway, the first book that I finished was Old Drift by Namvali Serpell. Namvali Serpell was born in 1980 in Zambia, and she teaches in the US now, and she writes in English. Excuse me. And this was the readathon, organized in regular installments by Didi from Brown Girl Reading, Read Soul Lit. I will leave a link to the Goodreads group down below. This was a debut novel published in, I thought I was well prepared today, but still with the numbers, 2019. And it is quite a sweeping story, starting in 1904, when Zambia didn't even exist, was still a colonial, British colonial country. And Old Drift is a colonial settlement. And we start in 1904 with a white settler coming to Old Drift, and then we have 3 generations. This is sort of the introduction to the story, and then we have 3 generations: the grandmothers, the mothers, and the children. The story is told from these various perspectives. So for grandmothers, for instance, you have 3, and then each grandmother would tell her own story. I'm really happy that I read it, and I will for sure pick up a second book from this author if she writes a second book. This one is quite a big one, by the way, but it was not my thing. Partly because it was just too much magical realism for me. If you know, if you follow my channel, you know that this is normally not something that I gravitate towards. It mostly doesn't resonate with me. And it was just too much in here. And in addition to that, I felt, I don't want to sound, snobby, but what I see often in debuts is that you just feel the author is trying too hard, to be deep and complete and tell everything, and the combination of the two, it just didn't work for me. But if you are into magical realism, I would certainly give it a try. And like I said, if Namvali Serpell writes a second book, I will certainly pick it up. The next book I finished is something that you will probably be surprised that I read it, because it's a YA novel, and that is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, published also in 2019. And yes, I don't normally read YA ever, but I'm a completist, and I want to complete the Reading Women Challenge 2021. Links to the Reading Women website and the challenge you will find down below. And one of the prompts, I think it was prompt number 12, was read a YA novel by a Latinx author. And so I saw this one on Script. Yes, I'm cheap. I didn't want to spend any money on it, really. Yeah, there you go. Confession time. But I saw this on Script, and I know that Elizabeth Acevedo is a very successful and well-known Latinx YA author. She wrote Poet X, Clap When You Fall. And so I picked this one up, and it was nice. It was a nice, very fast read. And the main character is a high school teenager, 16, when the book opens, Emily, and she has a little child. And the father is, you know, kind of absent. I mean, not Emily's father, but the father of the child. And you have that relationship, but mostly it's about Emily finding her way. And how she does that is she loves to cook. And then you get the story how she pursues this dream of becoming a chef. And like I said, I mean, YA is just not my thing, but this was a nice one. And it was, you know, fast-paced. It was sweet in a way, but not sugarcoating any problems, any issues. And I had a good time reading it, but it's not that I will now, you know, read YA every month. There you go. Next up is the book that I will finish today, because today is my last check-in with my buddy reader, Kathleen, from Kathleen Ann. You will find a link to her Instagram page down below, and that is an essay collection by Morgan Jerkins. This will be My Undoing, published in 2018. Morgan Jerkins is an Black, obviously, American author, a journalist, writer. This is her first essay collection, I think. She had another one, and then this year she had her first novel coming out. I have never read her, but I'm, as you know, if you follow this channel, that I'm reading young feminist thinkers, and Morgan Jerkins is one of those. She's in her late 20s, 28 or so, something, when she published this work. And it tackles, like it says here on the subtitle, living at the intersection of Black, female, and feminist in white America. And that's exactly what these 10 essays are about. It's about her being a woman, a Black woman, living in the US. I have still to read the very last essay, but I really liked the collection. Not every essay was strong, but there were a couple of essays in this collection that were really, really good. So I think it's worthwhile if you're interested in the experience and the exploration of a young Black feminist and her life growing up in the US and finding her way, then I can certainly recommend this one. So those were some of the books that I finished, or almost finished, the last, let's say, 10 days. On to the books that I started, because I also started 2, and the first one is a huge one, a big one, and a heavy one, Everybody by Olivia Lang, a book about freedom, published in April this year. And I already told you when I hauled this book that Olivia Lang, who's a British author, by the way, born in 1977, I really, really like her nonfiction. I especially loved her collection about being alone in a big city, a lonely city. She published that, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. 2018, she published her first novel, kind of out of fiction account about Brexit, called Crudo, which means raw. I didn't get along that well. It was really well written and it was interesting, but it was just not my thing. Not a bad book by any means, but just not my thing. But her nonfiction, I'm always in for. And this, her latest, I'm about, it looks like almost 2/3, because there are a lot of notes in the end. So this one is all about the body. And it looks about her own experience, coming of age, coming into her sexuality, but also how we treat the body, with a focus on the female body, but it's everybody. So it's the body more in general. And she looks at the history. It's almost I don't want to put you off, but if I say a scientific work, because she did a lot of research. I'm going to put this book down because it's really heavy. And also I want to takes one other book, because one psychoanalyst that she talks about continuously in the book and refers to is Wilhelm Reich. And he was a German follower of Freud until they fell out, and he died in 1957 or 57. And this is a battered, and you can see the tiny font of a really old copy that I have of his work, The Sexual Revolution. So Wilhelm Reich and the psychoanalysis look at the body is sort of a red thread, but she also talks about Kate Bush. She talks about other artists. So it's a very personal account in one. On the one hand, it's a very personal account, but she is not only talking about her own experience, but draws in, research and others. So I really love it so far. I think it's excellent, and I'm happy that I'm reading it at the moment. And the other book that I started is a buddy read with Heidi from My Reading Life. I will leave a link to her channel down below, and that is The Women I Think About at Night, Traveling the Path of My Heroes by Mikhail Kankimaki, translated from the Finnish by Douglas Robinson. The Finnish original was published in 2018, and this one was last year, 2020. It's a non-fiction book, and we are reading this for Women in Translation Month. We started a little early. I mean, yeah, it's, day after tomorrow is the 1st of August. So anyway, Mikhail Kankimaki, this is her second book, by the way, was working in publishing, and then she quit her job to write her first book about a Japanese court lady who lived 1,000 years ago. And after that book was published and finished and published, she didn't really know what to do. She was, did I say that, in her early 40s, 43. She had no job, no relationship, no children to care for. So she decided to go on a longer journey, so to speak, to follow her heroes. So there are a couple of women that she admires for one reason or the other, and she decided to follow them. I mean, most of them are dead, so she can't follow them in the real sense, but follow their path, like it says, the path of my heroes. So for instance, the first one, I just started the book, the first one is Karen Blixen, a Danish author who lived in the late 19th century, early 20th century, who had a farm in Africa that didn't go well, and then she went home when she was in her late 40s and started to write. One of her most famous books is Out of Africa, a memoir, which was made into a movie in the mid-1980s with Robert Redford and Meryl Streep. So I really remember that movie very well. Anyway, so this is the combination of a memoir, what happened to Mikhail Kankimaki when she follows the paths of these women, but it's also an account of the life of these women, or at least some of it. So it's the combination of a sort of biographical work and autobiographical work. It's too early to tell whether I like it, and I will also first check in with my buddy reader, but it's certainly something that interested me, otherwise it wouldn't have been on my TBR. Anyway, so those were some of the books that I've finished and the 2 books that I've started. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.